welcome to another episode of Push Play, where we talk about what's going on with Super Secret Bonus Level, what's going on with the retro community, and what's going on with video games in general. Again, with me this week is Tim Rayberg, and let's just jump right into it. First thing I want to talk about real fast is what's going on with Super Secret Bonus Level. Things are progressing well to get the store opened. Again, we're looking to open that at the Tallahassee Flea Market within the next few weeks. Right now, we're looking at a starting inventory of a little over 300 games and systems combined to open it up. Good little inventory to start there. Got to start somewhere. And again, that should be within the next few weeks. And just keep looking at the Facebook and listening to this, obviously, for updates. So let's go a little into what's going on with the retro scene. In the last episode, we talked about the NES Classic, but a lot of people don't know there's actually a flip side to the NES Classic. As most of you are aware, there was the Nintendo Entertainment System released by Nintendo in America, but it had another system in Japan called the Famicom. It looked different. It was set up a little bit different. Cartridges were different format, but mostly the games were released for both territories, but some were not. The Famicom system will have some games that the American system did not. They're releasing at the same time, but the games are different. So, Tim, what did you think about that? I was actually kind of surprised in a way that they did it. In a way, I'm not, because they were different systems, but Nintendo's really doing both systems as a plug and play, which I thought
Yeah,
was kind of neat.
yeah, and I think it is pretty neat for that gives everybody the opportunity to play those games that were not released in America, which I like that, and I don't have the Famicom, but I have a Super Famicom, and to
Which is
get
a
to play
lovely system to look
right,
at.
and to play games
Famicom,
that
not so much.
right. I mean, but to play games that were not released in America, I mean, there were some pretty good games for the Super Famicom. So, I mean, giving fans, the chance to play Famicom games that were not released in America, I mean, that's pretty neat. And as far as the NES Classic and the Famicom Classic, I would actually be more inclined to get the Famicom Classic. I mean, simply because unless you own an actual original Famicom, I'd be more inclined to buy that than the NES Mini, but that's just me personally.
Yeah, and aesthetically, as I just mentioned, the Famicom I never thought was a great looking system compared to the Nintendo. I think the Nintendo much
Blew,
better looking system.
yeah,
But on
blew
the
it out
flip
of the water.
side, the Super Famicom was to me a better looking system than
And I agree with that.
the
The
Super NES.
Famicom over the Nintendo won straight out. The Super Famicom won out. The Super Famicom looks so much better than
Yes,
the Super Nintendo.
so much better than the Super Nintendo. Not that I didn't like the Super Nintendo. I just think the Super Famicom looked way
And
better.
and I think the overall community would agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that got brought to my attention this week is there's a system that you can import, which is rather unique. It's kind of for the emulation crowd, and it's also for the physical collector crowd. It's a emulator system in Japan called the Retro Freak. Now, what separates the Retro Freak from like other systems like the Retron and things like that, some of those you know third party kind of, I don't want to say rip off, but compatible systems with games, is this one actually does ROM dumps. And what if you don't know what that is, if you're familiar with emulators, you know that what those games are is they're just digital dumps of the data that are on a cartridge, and then you have software that reads it. And a lot of these systems, like the Retron, actually just have emulation software built in. That's the reason they don't work with every game. They're not 100% compatible. But what this does, and I'm not even going to get into all of those things about, are ROMs legal, are they not legal, whatever. But this kind of fits both crowds, because if you are one of those people that say, well, I want to have that physical copy of a game, well, you can do that. You have the physical one, you do that, and then you can take that game and play it conscious free on your computer or on the Retro Freak because you own the physical copy of the game. You can literally put it in there, dumps the data out, and it works on Famicom, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, PC Engine, Sega Genesis, Sega Mega Drive, Super Graphics, Super Famicom, Super NES, and TurboGrafx. So I think it's a pretty neat idea. I don't know who all's going to get it, but I think it is an interesting middle ground between the emulator people and the collectors. It's kind of so. What do you think about that?
And my personal opinion is, one is because it is overseas. How many people are going to import it? Number one. Number two, not that either you or me condone ROMs and downloading of ROMs,
Right.
but I mean, I do see how it's kind of neat because you have to have the physical disc to dump to make your own little ROM. But what's to stop me from going and getting a RetroPie and downloading all the ROMs I want?
Well, I wouldn't dispute that, and there I have a group of friends that are always like, why do you actually collect games? Why don't you just, you know, go play the ROMs? And because for one, it's not technically it's not legal
And
unless you
right,
own the physical
unless you
copy.
exactly.
So there's that. So it's an interesting middle ground between it. So you can literally put your physical game in there, and hey, I own it. But you could also go download the thing too. Like if I own a copy of, The Legend of Zelda, I can go guilt free and download a ROM of The Legend of Zelda somewhere because I know I own the physical copy, which I
Right.
do. So, but it's neat though. I've always kind of wanted a ROM dump, machine. So it's actually a pretty cool device. You can import it from about 180 to $200. So it's kind of pricey. Um, But I think it's a pretty neat idea. Just want to let people know about it, that it exists, and
Right.
if you want that, it's good thing for retro collectors. Um, okay, so we're probably going to have two other topics. One we're going to touch on briefly, something that we're very excited about, but we still don't know that much about it yet. So the first topic that we're going to talk about is the Nintendo NX, which now has an official name, the Nintendo Switch, which, Nintendo has been super quiet about. They're just doing their thing. They want to be mysterious.
Yeah, I still don't get that about Nintendo.
I don't either. I don't know why they just don't come out and say what they're doing. But, I can't say that I wasn't impressed. I thought it was a very, a cool looking device. It's definitely different. I've done some research, and it's not something that someone hasn't attempted before, but it was companies that generally didn't have the kind of power that Nintendo had to kind of push this thing. I've done some research about some of the parts that are supposedly be in it. The developers have said its power level is. It's gonna be a good system. It's it's kind of Wii U 2.0, honestly,
Right.
in a way. It's kind of what I think people wanted the Wii U to be, and
And
I
I think honestly, me personally, I think if you look at the Wii U and you look at the Switch, it I think that's what they actually kind of set the Wii U up to do, and it just fell to the wayside. But that's what the Switch is.
yeah, I don't know if it was just a rush to market or what with the Wii U, but I think this is kind of what they wanted the Wii U to be
Right.
originally, and for
I think
whatever
so.
reason, either the technology wasn't there or they were rushing it. I mean, the Wii U itself is impressive as anyway when you think about what it's doing. It's streaming a game with extremely little lag, and now other companies have done that now, but they were the first one to do that and do it well. Um, And I still love my Wii U. I think it's a great system, but the Switch, being able to, hot just take the game with you immediately, you're gonna have a portable system that has PlayStation 4, Xbox One level of graphics in your hand. That's impressive. That kind of power in that system is what impresses me the most.
Yeah.
As far as where it's going to square up against the consoles, you got probably inevitably a PlayStation 5 is somewhere down the line in the next couple of years. You've got the PlayStation 4 Pro that's about to come out. You've got the Xbox One S. You've got the whatever the Project Scorpio is that Microsoft says is this is the most amazing thing since ever. Their normal uh, stuff that like they try to the smoke they try to blow up people with that, but
And let me interject. Yes, these other consoles are out there, and yes, probably Microsoft and Sony are probably on the verge of, I know they're already in, working with the new systems, and you just hadn't heard about it. But here's my thing with the Switch that just really blows it out of the water for me is the fact that it is portable.
and
We're
it's a
we're not
beast of a portable if it can do those
we're
graphics.
right, and we're not talking about as long as you're within range of a Wi-Fi signal, or no, we're talking about it is the system, so it does not matter where you go.
Yeah,
I mean, and ladies and gentlemen, if you watch the trailer and you really do your research, you can look at the third-party companies that are already supporting this console.
and you're gonna name yeah, I
Bethesda,
was gonna say you're gonna name
exactly.
Bethesda.
Bethesda, of all people, Bethesda. And they even showed clips, which Bethesda has not confirmed it, but Nintendo pretty much confirmed it for us. Skyrim
Yeah,
on the Switch. I mean, for the love of everything holy, I'm a very huge, big fan of Skyrim. And okay, so they release, let's say Bethesda releases another Fallout, and they release it on the Xbox Two or whatever they want to call it, or the PS5 or six or whatever they want to call it. That's fine and dandy, but I've got it on the Switch, and I can go anywhere with it.
yeah,
That for me, that speaks volumes.
yeah,
And for me, I would actually rather buy it for the Switch because I am able to take it anywhere I go.
yeah,
I mean, I'm sorry. That blows my mind.
yep, yeah. It's gonna be good. Where it squares up against consoles will be that's gonna be the selling point is that they can take it wherever you want to go. So hold on. And go back to what we were saying earlier, like about Bethesda. One of the big things I think that the Switch is doing, apparently developers love it, because you got companies that really badmouthed Nintendo recently, that did not support the Wii. They did not support the Wii U. You've got like Electronic Arts on board. You've got Square, which is still been Nintendo's buddy on portable, but they haven't done anything on the consoles really.
Right.
So they're picking up these companies that they've kind of lost touch with, and that's big. They got Activision is on board, so you're going to see stuff like Call of Duty
Call
and
of
those kind of
Duties.
things like
Right.
that. So that's big for them. I don't know what they did, but they're on board with the Switch apparently, so that's
Yeah.
that's really good. And we'll talk about the Switch a little bit more down the line as we learn more about it. Um, so let's go into next subject, which is something that just came out recently. Um, the PlayStation VR. Uh, I was kind of skeptical when I got it, but I had visited Tim and got to try it out before I got it, so I knew what I was getting. But everything I had heard about it before, and I tried virtual reality stuff like the Oculus and things like that. I thought it was neat, but just there wasn't anything good. There wasn't really games. Everything was just like a little tech demos or whatever. So I was like, oh, it's neat. But um, I see, the PlayStation. I saw Sony was getting behind it. They have something like 150 games in development for it. Um, and the games that I got to try out and did some more research on it were really impressive. Now, some of them are just glorified tech demos, but some of them are just full out games. And I can't remember the last time I've had this much fun with a current console, or at least blown away by what I'm experiencing with the PlayStation VR. I've been really happy with it.
Yeah. And what I will say about it, they're like any other gadget or system or actually anything. You're always going to find a flaw or two, and I think me and you both can agree. The PSVR does have some minor issues, but if you overlook those minor issues, it's actually really good and it has a lot of potential. It's up to Sony to really push it and to get all these third parties to really, put their investment in it. And I think if Sony really, really pushes it and supports it, and don't treat it like the PSP, don't treat it like the Vita. Let actually get in there and support this thing. There's a lot of potential, a lot of potential.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the things I would say is its strong point is its production quality. Um, I've used an Oculus before. It's okay, and it doesn't blow you away aesthetically looking at it. But the PlayStation VR really looks futuristic. I mean, it looks like something that you would see in a movie or something like that. So it's got that going for it. It's a very nice looking device. It's got like the LEDs that glow blue. It's the black with the white trim. It almost has kind of like a Tronish kind of quality to it. So
Right.
it's like you're really like, hey, I went to the future and I got something and brought it back, and it's awesome.
And since we're talking about the headset, and as far as putting it on, when you first put it on, it's kind of clunky and the way you put it on and all that. But it's like once you get it on
It's very
and you
comfortable.
and exactly, and you get immersed into the game or the movie or whatever the case may be you're using it for, you really forget you have this thing on your head.
You do.
I mean, and
It's
you
very comfortable. It's like
right.
you're not wearing it once you get it on and you get used to it. You kind of forget it's there.
You really do. I mean, and that's the thing that I keep telling everybody I talk to about it is I can tell you all about it until I'm blue in the face,
You
but
have to.
until you physically experience it for yourself, there's no words to explain it.
Oh,
I mean,
there's not. Yeah.
when you get it on and you forget that it's on your head and you fully get immersed in that game, you're immersed in that game. It really draws you in.
Another strong point, I think, I'll just cover its strong points first while we're discussing them, is that it's cheap. Now, when I say cheap, it's not cheap. It is $399 at the base model. However, if you compare it to other comparable VR experiences, such as the Oculus or the Vive, Vive, whatever that other one is.
HTC Vive.
Yeah, that thing. It's much cheaper. You could literally buy a PlayStation VR and a PlayStation for less than an Oculus. And so you're looking at buying an Oculus, plus you have to have a pretty beefy PC to
Right.
run the Oculus right. So you're looking at over $800 for an Oculus, another at least $800 to $1,000 for a
Right.
PC that can really do it effectively, if not more.
If not more than that, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Plus, you have to go get the motion controllers and things like that on the PC, which aren't cheap. The PlayStation gives you everything. You've got it's a seamless integration between the headset and the sensors in the headset, the sensors in the controllers or the moves and the camera. So you can't like get up and walk around your room, obviously, because you just you'd kill yourself tripping over stuff probably,
Right.
but you can move though. And I'll give you
Right.
a quick example of that is on VR Worlds in the London Heist. There's a part where you're in a shootout and you're behind a desk and you have to like constantly be moving behind, going up, going down, going left, going right, going under the desk to try to dodge the bullets that are coming at you. Or another one example in VR Worlds, the first one I did and the first one you showed me when I tried it out was when you're in the shark cage, you can kind of walk out and look over the cage. You can look down over it from a place where you wouldn't be when you start. So you are moving around in
Right.
the virtual space.
And that was my first experience. When I used the shark cage. I actually, when I experienced it, I didn't experience it sitting down. I experienced it standing up, and it is actually neat because, like he said, you can physically walk forward, and you're walking forward in the cage,
Hmm.
and then you can actually look down, and you're looking through the cage. It's really neat.
Right, and some of the games that they've got really kind of show that off. Um, so
Danger Ball's another. Danger Ball requires you to move your head a lot.
yeah, that's actually a pretty fun game. It's very simple. It's like playing Pong with your face, but
Right.
um,
And,
it's still a good game though.
I mean, and that's being very descriptive and very accurate in my opinion. But yeah, it's playing Pong with your head, but it's pretty neat because it's not just putting your head there. You can actually turn your head a certain way when you go to hit the ball, and it'll put a spin on it
Yep,
and things of that nature. So I mean, it's really cool.
yep. So I think the strongest things is that a lot of people have a PlayStation. It's the top selling system this generation. So you've already got an install base there. It's already cheaper than the Oculus. It looks cool. Um, they actually have a pretty good lineup just right out of the gate. I mean, some of the games are but there's some really good games out for it now.
Right.
So that's a good thing. Now, the only real negative that I've had, and we've talked about this obviously before this show, is that the image quality is not quite, I think, what people thought it would be. There are some complaints that the picture is fuzzy. Um, Now, I've noticed that that's not even consistent in some games. So I don't know if it's a hardware issue or a software issue because I've seen some games where the picture is absolutely pristine. So I don't know if they realize that some of the developers didn't realize that the output of the device is not quite, it's not 1080p, even though the specs say it's 1080. It's actually outputs more around 720 is
Yeah.
what you're actually seeing, and I think that might be why some of the games are a little fuzzy. And sometimes you can adjust the headset to do it because sometimes it's just the headset's not quite right. But some of the games I've played, the picture's fine. There's no fuzziness at all. It's like it's super clear, and then some of them the games are a bit fuzzy. So I don't really know if that's a hardware or a software thing.
All right, and like I we said before. I mean, that's probably one of my cons about it, and it's not that big of a thing where you're like, oh, I can't play this
Oh
trash,
yeah,
and
it's
it's
not
not
that bad.
but that is a con, But in comparison, you look Ocean's Descent is what it's called. If you look at Ocean's Descent, you really don't see none of that. I mean,
No, you
it's
don't.
really clear, it's really beautiful, and but then you take a game like me and you've been playing quite a bit, and it's really fun, and I recommend it to anybody that plans on picking up a PSVR. Is E Valkyrie.
But that's worth picking up the system alone to me right now.
The graphics are good when you're actually out in space fighting and dogfighting, and you really lose focus of, oh, is this blurry or isn't it blurry? You really don't care. But when you're sitting there and you're getting ready for a match or you're getting ready to launch out of your launch bay, you can see that fuzziness. You can see the graphics aren't as sharp. The textures are not as sharp as they could be.
Yeah, I agree. But like a lot of the reviews that I've read on Eve, which I'll speak very highly of the game, by the way, so I'm not knocking it in any way. The reviews are really good on that game, actually.
Right.
Um, is that they say the same thing about the graphics being fuzzy, but they say once you're in there and you you just lose yourself immediately
You
because
really do.
you're I'm just going to say, okay, imagine you're in a Star Wars movie that you're sitting in an X-wing and you're flying it. You can look anywhere you want, independent of your ship, just like you're sitting there. And that's the experience you get. You feel like you're in a freaking intergalactic battle
Right.
that you're a part of, and
Right.
it's just I've never played a game like that that's that immersive, and it's not
And
a tech demo at all. It's a full game, and
it's a full game.
you lose yourself immediately in it.
And what I've explained to some of my friends is, you play video games all your life, and the latest consoles, you're so used to two analog sticks, and you're so used to the left analog stick, moving your actual character, and then you use the right analog stick to
Like,
use as the camera
yeah, like to look around. Yeah,
to look around. That's not the case in the with the PSVR. You use the analog stick on the left to move your character, your spaceship, or whatever the case may be. But the second analog stick is no longer the camera. Your head is the camera.
yeah.
So I mean, it's so realistic. I mean, because it's the real world. You are the camera.
And it's just it's very immersive too, because like when you look down, you see yourself. You're like, I mean, there's a lot of attention to detail. Like when you're in the cockpit, you can look anywhere in the cockpit. You look everywhere around. You look down, you see you sitting there as a pilot.
Right.
There's a lot of attention to detail to that, and I've noticed that in a lot of the VR software so far, is they really go full on immersion to get you in that, because video games are escapism. It's things that people do to kind of forget about what's going on, that they can go into this virtual world, and which we've done since the Atari days, such as they are. But it's you're playing games, and they get better and better and better. But I've
And
never
it's
experienced anything like the VR
and
that
it's
does
no
that.
longer a flat image.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a full 360-degree image.
And I want to point out something real quick before we go into something else. And I saw someone ask Sony in a Q&A whether or not, actually I think it was on the official Q&A for the VR. Is someone asked, can you do 3D imagery? Like, can you watch a 3D movie or do 3D games, meaning like what people consider 3D, like things popping out at you in this. And I can already tell you they can. And the reason I say it is one of the demos on, or not, well, it's actually not a demo. It's on VR Worlds, which is basically a bunch of glorified demos. They're amazing
Right.
though.
Right.
It was in was it Space
The
Salvage?
the scavenger.
Space Scavenger, yeah. Um, there are sequences where there's like these crystals that are floating around, and because the PlayStation VR really is two different screens. It's one for one eye and one on the other. It's so there's these parts in the game where you're looking at these crystals, and the crystals look like they're almost jumping out at you from the screen, because the technology in there is parallax. It's very similar to the way that certain 3D technologies for TVs work, where it shows you part of an image on one eye, part of an image on the other eye, and it tricks your brain into thinking it's 3D. It adds depth there. Um, the DS works in a very similar way, except in reverse. It has where when you're looking down in it, it gives it depth. So it's a very similar technology. So I've seen games already that show that you can do even things that just jump out of you, like that really look deep, um, from that perspective too. So not just the fact that you have this big sprawling 3D world, it can give you an incredible amount of depth when you look at it. So it's just another little neat thing I noticed about
Yeah.
the VR.
And I think later on you'll probably see more of that. Just Sony is probably not showing all their cards, but I think you'll see that later on.
Also, for any non-gamers that are listening to this show, I also want to mention one other very good plus about the thing. Um, Because there's really no other negatives, honestly. I can't think of any
I
other negatives at the moment.
if and I agree at the moment right now for what I've played, for what I've looked at, I other than the fuzziness and blurriness, sometimes no, I don't either.
Yeah, so for the non-gamers that are listening, this is the best movie thing you've ever seen, or it has the potential to be.
I,
Because
yeah,
even built in any video source actually, but if you're going to watch like say a Blu-ray or something in your PlayStation, it simulates a 226-inch movie screen. It's like having your own personal movie theater in your house.
and
So,
and and
and
and
it's amazing to look at.
and that goes back to what I said earlier, and you will agree with me with this. We can tell you this and tell you this and beat it in your head. You will never understand it until you experience it.
Right.
I mean, it's literally like I went, I paid eight, nine, $10 for a ticket, and I'm sitting on the front row looking up at a
I don't know
screen.
what movie theater you went to.
Right. I mean, hey, that just shows you how long it's been since I've been to a movie.
It's like fourteen
But
dollars here.
it's like you literally go and sit on the front row looking at this screen. It is absolutely massive, and it's right there in front of you.
Yeah, it's like when I go here, I go to the AMC theater. We have an IMAX screen, which is obviously huge. My sweet spot at the theater is about halfway up, and I don't want to be right in the front. I don't want to be right in the back. I like a really big screen. I use just about halfway up, and it's just absolutely perfect for me. It completely covers almost my entire field of vision. It's a great movie experience, and literally, it's like just get it in your comfy chair, get you some popcorn, get you a drink, sit down. You're in your own movie theater, except you don't have to worry about, people's phones going off or people talking or whatever. It's a completely engrossing experience if you like movies. It's
Right.
awesome.
And my thing is, since you do have the IMAX theaters, I mean, let's just say, hey, it's up to the movie company. The movie companies could sport this even further and actually shoot something and have it in a full 360 for you to turn your head. And I mean, it the capability's there.
And since you mentioned that, I will mention that the Sony launched several different video channels, applications, channels, whatever you want to call them, that specialize in 3D movies. They're some of them are really cool, but there were things that were filmed exactly what you said. They were filmed with VR in mind, so the videos are filmed where you can look around in 360 degrees. There's some animated movies. There's some sports movies. There's actually one of the neatest ones I saw the other day was a MythBusters one where they set up a VR on what does MythBusters like to do the most? Blow the
Blow
crap out
stuff,
of them.
yeah, blow stuff up.
Blow stuff up. So they set up a VR camera to capture a truck blowing up, and it was amazing.
I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah, so there's, I believe, three different channels up there right now, and it's all free, no unsubscribes, no pays. Some of them have the same content as the other ones, but it's pretty cool. Some of the other media companies are getting on board. Netflix said that they're going to support it. They haven't said what they're going to do, but they said they're going to be supporting the VR. It was supposed to be at launch, and they haven't yet, so it should be pretty soon. Was it Hulu?
I
I think it's
think
Hulu.
I
Yeah.
think Hulu also said they would
Um,
support it.
Hulu. No, one of them supports it now. Um, I believe it's Hulu is the one that supports it now, and I don't subscribe to Hulu, so I haven't checked it out personally. So I don't know exactly what they do. I know that they are supporting the VR. So you got Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon are the big ones for streaming. There's other ones like if you're an anime, Crunchyroll and stuff like that. So it's up to them if they want to support it. But it looks like they are. So that's another plus for the VR. It's definitely a very good entertainment vehicle if people decide to use it.
Yeah.
And I guess let's talk about just a few of the games real quick before we close up. As we've already talked about, Eve Valkyrie is an amazing experience. You've also heard us mention VR Worlds, which has some of the coolest things I've experienced in a video game, and really kind of shows what you can do with VR storytelling. London Heist, it's not for the kiddies. I'll tell you that right now.
Right,
Um, it has quite a few f bombs,
right.
but man, is it amazing! Is an amazing experience. You're in a mob film. I mean, okay, just an example of the realism that you're in here. I know this is going to sound again, unless you experience it, but in the gunfights, what do you do in a gun? What do you do in a gunfight in a video game?
And,
You
yeah,
press a button to reload your gun.
right.
Okay, in the VR, you're not doing that.
Mm-mm.
You're literally in a
Reloading the
gunfight.
gun.
You're
Yeah.
grabbing clips, popping the clips out of your gun, grabbing clips, popping them in your gun, and then shooting again.
And you can go even further. I mean, it's also taking cover.
Yeah,
Again,
and you're taking cover in the
a
fights
regular game,
physically.
you're pushing a button, and then that's taking cover. Not here. You're actually taking cover. You're not pushing a button. You're taking cover.
And there's like a torture sequence in the game where you're the guy that's like strapped to a chair. And again, you've seen it in movies, you've seen it in games, but there's something very very different when that person is staring you right in the face.
Right.
It is a completely different experience.
And I'll go one step. Talking about VR worlds. My personal favorite in VR worlds is Danger Ball because I'm so competitive. I like that. Okay, well, I've already made this high score. I want to beat it. I want to beat my own high score, and it just keeps me going back and back and back, and just to see how much further I can get. I love Danger Ball. That to me is a extremely fun game on VR worlds.
Another one that me and my friends have really got a kick out of so far is the actually a free game that you can get for it. If you have a PlayStation 4 and if you have a camera, then you're familiar with the the Playroom, which they give you stuff to play around with the camera. Some really kind of neat demos. But they released Playroom VR with this, which is completely different. It's not just a rehash of the stuff that was in the other Playroom. It's completely different. It's like I think it was 5 or 6 games,
Something like that.
and they are a blast if you have people to play them with you. They are so much fun because there's a lot of different combinations of how you use the helmet, the VR itself, and how you have other people doing the controllers. You have I don't even know which one of my favorite is or which one my friend's favorite is because they're all so fun. One people seem to like a lot is there you play a monster. The person on the with the VR plays like a giant monster, like a Godzilla monster. And you have the people with the controller, which are looking at something completely different on the screen. So if you've ever played like Nintendo Land for the Wii U, you kind of get an idea of this, where somebody sees something different on the controller as opposed to what people are seeing on the TV. And there's a couple other games for the Wii U like that as well. So the monster is seeing out of the VR headset, and all the other people are running around trying to get away from you while you're chasing them with the VR helmet on. And you're literally like walking through the city, knocking over buildings, knocking down helicopters, tearing up roads, all this, trying to, defeat the little guys that are running from you. And then they like do a last stand where they start throwing stuff at you at the end to try not to get thing in. And I won't give it away. When the monster, if you're the monster and you lose, it is super cool. What happens to you when you lose? It is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a video game. There's one where you play a cat. Again, you're the cat. The other people are seeing something else on the screen. The cat's trying to get the mice that are being hidden. There's one where you're a ghostbuster, for the lack of a better term, where you are in a haunted house. You can't see where the ghosts are, but your other buddies can. So it's kind of like I guess kind of like playing Marco Polo in a way. You can't see, but they can. So they're telling you where to look, and then they tell you where to fire, and then you catch the ghost and do it. And what's really neat is in that game you're using the controller, and the controller is both your busting, like your proton pack, I guess, and also your trap. So it's really neat because it maps the virtual controller that you see in the game over your controller, so it looks like the ghosts are actually in your controller trying to get out, like you've contained them in your controller. It is such a surreal experience. It's just those little touches to it. So there's a lot of games in the playroom VR like that are really fun experiences with people. Do you have another one, Tim? Because I have another one I want to talk about real quick.
I think another one for me would be Battlezone. Battlezone
Yeah, that's
is
good. I played the demo. I
is
don't have it.
Battlezone is another good one.
So what did you like about Battlezone?
I like. There's a couple things I like about Battlezone. One of the things I like about it is the art style.
It's Tron.
It's right. It's basically Tron. I mean, that's a great example of it. I couldn't think of kind of how the art style was, but that's it. It's Tron basically. I like that. Um, I don't know. I mean, I can't really explain what draws me in about it. I mean, you're just basically you're in a battlefield tank and you're going around shooting other battlefield tanks and copters in the sky and stuff like that. And I don't know. I guess what's so fun about it to me is again you're moving your head left and right. You're in the tank. You
Yeah,
are the
yeah. I played
driver
the
of the
demo.
tank.
It's very good.
I mean, it's there's just something about I'm no longer just looking at it as a flat screen and I'm moving the tank and the camera. No, 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 no. My head is the camera. I am the driver of that tank.
Hmm.
I mean, I like that. That the VR really adds a lot to that game.
Another one that this is one my wife really likes is this was actually the game she picked when we bought the thing. Um, and it surprised me was Batman VR. She looked at it and she was like, "This looks really fun. This looks cool." So when we got it, that was the game she picked for herself. I did not expect that, but that game is really neat. The only problem with it is very short. It's definitely one of those that I would say is a tech demo. It's a long tech demo.
A glorified tech demo.
Yeah. But it's a great one. It's made by Rocksteady, which of course made the amazing Arkham games. So they have that pedigree behind them. And you're Batman. I can't describe it. And you're actually more Batman, I think, in this than you've ever been in Batman because most Batman games, even the amazing games that Rocksteady made, it's you can do some detective stuff or whatever, but it's still mostly fighting. Batman is so much more than that in the comics, and it's something they never really did in the movies well either. Is convey that side of Batman is he's a detective. He's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. And in this game, you do a lot of detective work. It's mostly that. I mean, there's some things where you're throwing batarangs at stuff, but you don't ever really get in any fist fights. Um, but it's a lot of detective work. It's a big puzzle game. You can play through the game honestly about an hour and a half, 2 hours, but
Right.
it's $20.
And that's what I was going to
It's
say.
the price of a movie, and
I
it's more like you're playing an interactive movie. So it's I wonder if some of the VR stuff's going to be priced that way because you go out and buy a Blu-ray movie, it's an hour and a half. You're going to be watching it. It's $20.
right.
That's how much this is.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to hit on for a minute. You know, for you to focus on how short it was and stuff like that.
But it's an
The
amazing hour and a half
right.
playing it.
Well, not only that, but then that's what I was going to mention was the price tag. I mean, it's not like you're paying the full $60 price tag, and they're going to shortchange you. I mean, you're
Yeah,
really
if that was $60, I would have been pissed. But for
right.
$20, I'm like, hey, this is pretty
and
amazing.
and that game itself, I don't think it's necessarily the gameplay. It's the
Yeah,
experience.
it's the experience. You are Batman.
Right.
I,
It's
I
the
don't know how to
experience.
I don't know how to explain it. You feel like Batman when you play it.
Right.
Um, see, there was another one. I know you just picked it up. I don't know if you had a chance to play it yet.
I have
I've
not.
played the demo a couple of times. Is Until Dawn: Rush of Blood, and I have had the pleasure of seeing some of my friends get scared while
Right.
playing that thing.
Right.
Just to go over what that is real quick, it's based in the Until Dawn universe, which was a kind of a horror survival kind of game that was released recently. It's in that same universe, but in this, you're kind of like it's a rail shooter. You're more or less going through like a haunted house ride. So it's you're in a haunted house, but you're in guns. You have guns. So it's kind of like playing, House of the
House of
Dead,
the Dead.
something like that, which I have no problem with. House of the Dead series, one of my favorite shooter series ever. But this thing was very realistic looking. It's got stuff that just jumps out at you from nowhere. It has very good use of 3D audio, which actually is something I want to bring up too. Is the VR games have very, very, very good surround sound. Um, and I just have a regular pair of headphones that I'm using. I'm actually using some Sony headphones that I bought from Walmart for like 25 bucks. And it has such good directional sound
And I
on those
right.
games.
And that's what I would interject and say, if you're gonna go out and get the PSVR, hey, do yourself right. Get you a pair of headphones. Play the PSVR with headphones. I
Yeah,
mean,
it definitely helps with the experience because it desensitizes you to everything around you, so it really gets you back into the
right.
experience.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I guess we've covered what we thought about it, what its pros are, what its cons are, some of the games, and some of they've got around 150 games. Sony said's coming. Resident Evil 7's coming, which I've already read
I
people have said it scares the bejesus out of them when they
I'm
play it.
super excited about it.
The new Tomb Raider game supports it. Even though I do know someone that has tried Tomb Raider and they said that made them sick. But VR, I think, is a little going to be one of those things where they're either you can stomach it or you can't. I mean, it does make people sick.
And I
Like
think
I could
that
ride a roller coaster, for example, fine, and then I know other people will puke their guts out. So
I
it's
think it really depends on the person.
yeah. So he said he got nauseous playing it. I'm interested in it because it's the definitive edition of the new Tomb Raider, which was an amazing game on its own. So adding the VR is cool. Some people that have got review copies of Resident Evil 7 say it is scary as hell.
Uh,
That it's a return to Resident Evil being scary, which it
I'm
has not been
super
in forever.
super excited about that one. Super excited.
So it just makes me hope that Konami starts making games again and makes a Silent Hill for it, but it's probably never going to happen. Um, So there's a lot of stuff coming. It's good. Driving games are good. I have actually wanted to try out Drive Club. I have not yet. I know Tim, you tried it.
It's fair.
I'm just waiting for like someone to update, like maybe like Project Cars, or the Holy Grail would be something like a Burnout. Please
Yeah,
please Electronic Arts, let Criterion make a new Burnout, not Need for Speed. Burnout.
won't
Um,
ever happen.
Yeah, that's never going to happen, but I can dream.
Okay.
Have Sony do another Gran Turismo. I can't imagine what that game would be like on the VR.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right here. Bethesda, give me another Fallout.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Holy,
And,
come on.
and honestly, quite honestly, it wouldn't take that much. I mean, games like Skyrim and Fallout and whatever, they're already 360 anyway. I mean, they're all around you. It wouldn't take that much, I think, as a developer to even just release a patch,
Right.
for a game to make it support the VR. Um, So I guess it's just let's just sum up and say, what do we think the PlayStation VR will do? Is it just going to be a just sum up here? Will it be a fad? Or do we think that's the way games are going? And it's definitely, I think, a way that Sony's going to diversify them between the three major game companies. I mean, Nintendo's got the Switch. We know where they're going with that. Um, Microsoft apparently is going down the Power Road. They have the HoloLens coming, but the HoloLens is like $4,000, I think, right now. So they have not said anything about it, how much it's gonna cost when it's to just the consumers. So we don't really know what they're doing. From Project Scorpio, we just know that they're just going to be throwing more power at it. That's the only thing they said is it's going to be the most powerful game system, ever. Blah blah blah. So Sony, I think, is going down the VR road. So
Right. And here's my thing. Is it going to be a fad, or is it just going to be the next big thing? Here's my thing. Here's my answer. My opinion. It's all up to Sony. Straight up. I mean, I think the PSP and I think the Vita could have been a lot more. I don't know what happened. I don't know if Sony lost interest or they didn't push it. They didn't go to third party. I don't know. I can't speak, but in my personal opinion, it's up to Sony. It's in their hands. This thing has a lot of potential. A lot of potential. If Sony backs it and Sony can get out there and get these companies to back it, it is the future. But
yeah,
if you don't
it
have,
can be definitely.
It absolutely. But if Sony just, okay, well, here's a cool little Christmas gift for Billy. I'm sorry. It's going to be another fad, and within a year or two, it's just going to be the next Connect.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's going to do it for this episode. So we hope you learned a lot about the VR and got you excited. I know we're excited. We're obviously retro gamers, but we're also gamers just in general. And I've said earlier in this show, the PlayStation VR has just simply floored me. And I only have a few games for it, and to play the demos and stuff. And it's been the most fun I've had on a game system in quite some time.
Yeah.
It's definitely floored me.
I'll make one more plug before we leave. By the time you're hearing this, it's probably already out. But go to the store, support Bethesda, get the Skyrim Special Edition.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm just saying. Tomorrow, I'm getting off of work. I'm going straight to GameStop, and I will buy that game. And there is where I will spend most of my time.
And you'll probably buy it again for the Nintendo Switch.
And more than likely, yes, when the Nintendo Switch comes out and they have it, I will buy it for that. I will play Skyrim and I will play Fallout over and over and over and over again. Love it.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to this latest edition of Push Play. It's the second one. It's a little bit longer than the first one, so we hope you learned a lot and you enjoyed it. And come back next time. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook, and definitely make sure to come by the store.
Give us some likes, ladies and gentlemen. Give us some likes.
Thanks for listening, and hope to see you next time.